Adopting an infant is very different than adopting a toddler or elementary age child and so on. It is very important that the adoptive family be well prepared for the appropriate developmental stage the child is in at arrival, but also have a good understanding about how adoption issues work in these stages to follow. During the first year, infants develop a sense of trust in the world by attaching with a parent or caregiver. As we have thoroughly discussed, secure bonding naturally occurs during the first months of a child's life when he or she feels a need and that need is met with parental attention. When a child is adopted, especially if adopted from an orphanage or deprived early environment, it is not likely that the child's physical and emotional needs were met on demand and with consistency and efficiency. For example, if a baby is hungry at 10 o'clock, but the orphanage staff is very busy and overworked, and it is scheduled for that baby to eat at 11:30, well, it doesn't matter how much the baby wants to eat. It won't be dinner time until 11:30. When a baby's needs are not met on demand, over time, he or she will learn that their needs are considered insignificant and that they are powerless. The baby learns that he has no voice and adults will be considered unreliable. When a child with this experience comes to an adoptive family, his parents should meet each need consistently, lovingly, and on demand. The child should have the opportunity to feel the need, but as soon as that need is communicated, the parent should meet with efficiency. When you respond to the child's need, he will learn he can trust and depend on you. Pleasant and affectionate interactions and consistent attention to needs encourages the parent-child bond. The process of separation from the parents usually begins during the second year and towards the end of the first year. During this time, adoptive parents should continue with meeting the child's needs with love and consistency. Attachment issues might occur as adopted children will always have at least one broken attachment from the birth mother and possibly more from foster family or orphanage workers. The child is learning to communicate their preferences to be with mom and dad, and they protest when they go. The child shows frustrations when told no and might even exhibit some aggressive behaviors. The parents should allow the child to explore the world in safety. An attentive adoptive parent's goal continues to be the child's development of trust in the world, and now he's trying to figure out how he fits into the world. Sometimes little ones adopted during the second year or later will regress a little bit, and that's okay because it allows the child to be more dependent on mom and dad, aiding in the attachment development. Sometimes parents even help their child to regress by feeding with a bottle or holding the toddler like a little baby. This also gives the parent the opportunity to make up for what may have been lost or damaged in earlier relationships. Toddler adoption can be especially difficult for the child in that they're usually given little preparation for the adoption, which can be very traumatic, and that they only realize a major change has happened without having the cognitive ability to understand why it was needed or the verbal development to express what has just occurred. Very consistent routines are helpful and necessary. Encouraging verbal development, talking all day long to the toddler, is needed so that communication challenges will be as short-lived and least frustrating for the child as possible. Think about it. If you were picked up by nice giants one day and carried off to outer space to live some new life, would you rather have had some preparation for this relocation and understanding about why it was necessary to occur? Would you adapt better and transition more easily if you had the ability to communicate with the giants? It's kind of the same way for your adopted children. When adopting a child during the preschool years, they are becoming more developed in their cognitive understanding and will have some memories of their life before the adoption, which can be a very helpful tool for helping the child to integrate their experiences both pre and post-adoption into their life story. Creating a storybook about the adoption in simplified terms with pictures can help the child understand what has just happened, where they came from, and where they are now. And I'll talk a lot about creating a simple life story shortly. These preschool years are full of activity and questions. Many children will ask lots of questions about his or her adoption, and the parents' comfort and confidence with these questions is as important as the answers. I often advise adoptive parents should anticipate the questions the child may ask and make a conscious decision about how they will answer. Remember, it's important to only answer the question that is asked. Adults sometimes try to give too much information before the child is ready for it. Your child will ask for more information as he or she needs it. Children of these ages sometimes have abandonment fears and engage in magical thinking. They think the world operates in relation to them. They actively try to understand and resolve their role in the world. So when questions come, try to answer them in an appropriate context given the child's age. Be honest, but not too technical at first, trusting that if the child wants more information, he will ask for it. Children that have been abused or traumatized in this age group may be fearful, exhibit sexualized behaviors, show aggression, have inappropriate reaction to various stimuli, and other issues. For these children, and honestly for any child, the parent's pursuit of the trust-based relational intervention can be very effective. As for adoption issues during the elementary school years, most studies conducted find that adopted children are within the normal range of emotional maturity and academic ability. Children adopted into families that are in tune with emotional and sensory needs and the child's security of attachment are usually cruising during this time. For children in this age group who are not fully confident with their safety or attachment, there can be some behavioral acting out or even symptoms of anxiety and depression. Families are encouraged to seek opportunities to build your child's self-confidence. During these years, the child attempts to master all of the facts, ideas, and skills that will equip them to progress towards adolescence and adulthood. They are supposed to cement their sense of belonging to the family during this period. The full impact of the loss of birth parents and grief in the adoption may occur during the ages of 7 to 12, when the child is more capable of understanding the concept of adoption. Children struggling with these issues need parents who are willing to talk about the adoption and birth parents without feeling threatened in their role. If parents are unwilling to talk about these issues, the child may fantasize about his or her background, which could result in self-identification as an unworthy person. Remember, children tend to personalize everything, such as if I had been a boy or a girl, or if I had been prettier or smarter, my birth mother might have kept me. During adolescence, the child's primary task is to establish a secure sense of identity and separation from dependency on parents. This can be a time of crisis for any child, biological or adopted, but adopted children might be somewhat more critical than biological children of their parents' decisions and may have a more pronounced need for control. As the child progresses towards sexual maturity, the parent may go through feelings of infertility and loss again. If the child's birth mother was a teenager, this can trigger some strong emotions as the child nears the age of his or her birth mother at the time of the adoption. All experienced parents know that the teenage years are difficult, but keep in mind it is both normal and temporary. Using respectful adoption language means choosing the terms that reflect the maximum dignity and responsibility about the decisions that both birth and adoptive parents have made regarding their family planning. Your child's birth mother or birth parents made a choice that, for whatever reason, they could not at that time parent the child in the way they felt the child deserved. Likewise, you made a choice to pursue adoption as a means of expanding your family. Adoption on both the birth and adoptive family's part was a conscious decision that deserves respect. Using respectful adoption language helps to eliminate the socially held myth that adoption is second choice. As we have discussed, many families that pursue adoption have chosen to adopt after experiencing infertility or other challenges with regard to family building, but many other families have chosen to adopt for reasons completely unrelated to fertility. Remember that many questions you answer or comments you make about adoption should be made for your child's ears. Remember that in order for your child to be comfortable with the adoption, mom and dad must also be comfortable talking about adoption. It is also especially important to let your child's adoption be a positive, but not defining part of his or her life. For example, you would not introduce a biological child with, "This is our biologically conceived son." There's no reason to introduce an adopted child with, "This is our adopted daughter." Your child, biological or adopted, is simply your child. Parents are encouraged to develop a respectful adoption language plan. Be clear about the adoption terms you plan to use. For example, to say, "Amber, the birth mother, gave her baby up for adoption," does not reflect how painful but loving Amber's choice was. Although Amber felt unprepared for parenthood and that her situation was not good for raising a child, that does not mean that she did not anguish over this decision and make a choice to allow a family she felt was ready to raise the child. So instead of saying Amber gave up her baby for adoption, may I suggest that instead you say Amber made an adoption plan. It's very important to teach the family, friends, babysitters, church members, teachers, or anyone who will have much contact with your adopted child about respectful adoption language and share your plan with them. You can even find lists of positive and negative adoption terms online to print and distribute to all of those in your circle. Using respectful adoption language helps to facilitate feelings of entitlement. Entitlement, as defined in the book Raising Adopted Children, is developing a sense that a child belongs in the family even though she wasn't born into it, which is a crucial task for adoptive parents. Unless parents develop a sense that the child is really theirs, they will have difficulty accepting their right to act as parents. To help facilitate feelings of entitlement, adoptive parents should learn and use positive adoption language. As I mentioned, a quick Google search will give you lots of good information about respectful adoption word choices. Adoptive parents should speak positively of their child's birth parents. Adoptive parents should love their child's birth parents. Remember, not to love her is not to love a part of your child. This does not mean that you necessarily love or agree with all of her decisions, but love her as a choice made within your spirit and display this love accordingly with your child. Parents should accept the place of the birth parents in the child's history. Adoptive parents are not their children's birth parents. The adoptive mother was not pregnant with the child or gave birth to the child or share a genetic past with this child. Those intimate parts of the child's history are shared only between child and birth parent. If the adoptive parent can honor the birth parent's place, the child will be equipped to feel good about themselves. Accepting and respecting this reality does not diminish the adoptive parent's place as a parent, Rather, it lets them claim the whole of the child. Parents should speak positively about adoption in general. Adoption is one good way that families are created. Another good way that many families are created is through biology. Neither is better, they are equally good and valid. And adoptive parents should realize that parenting is what makes one a real parent. If mom is out with her child who was transracially adopted and obviously it's not a biological daughter, and she is asked, "Do you know what her real mom looks like?" Mom should describe herself. Is it an artificial parent who wipes the noses, cleans the puke, receives the bedtime snuggles, and watches Saturday morning cartoons? Mom is the real parent. At this time, please pause the film and discuss the following. Will my experience with infertility be a barrier to loving my child? Who should I teach about respectful adoption language? Will I feel like my child's real parent?
Even though no one could have pried him from our arms, it took a couple months before it felt like he was ours. In the beginning, it felt like we were babysitting with a surreal twist that his parents weren't coming back. Even though I read all the material that said these feelings were normal, I still felt guilty. I didn't want to admit that to anyone.
We felt like full-time babysitters for the first few weeks, and we kept looking at each other like, when is this child's parents going to come pick him up so we can get some sleep? It was not until someone reached out to hold Adam, and he turned in toward me and snuggled up against me that it hit me. He finally recognizes me as his mom. It was a great mommy moment, and from then on, I really felt like there was a connection. With Nicky, because it took a few weeks for his personality to come back, it took a little longer. Over the course of a few weeks, just always being the ones to respond to his needs, you could see in his eyes that he was beginning to trust us and connect with us.
My best guidance for new families, the first 6 months might be hell. After that, you won't remember what it was like before they came. And it's perfectly normal to look at your child across the table and think, what was I thinking? Everything was great before. I wish we had never adopted this child. Everyone thinks this about his or her spouse too sometimes. They just don't usually admit it.
We wish we had linked up with the families who had experience with the adoption of older kids who could have walked us through each few months. Each 6-month stage had its own joys and challenges that would have been nice to prepare for. For example, we wish we had known that it would take until the 1-year mark to feel connected like a family again, and that it would take until the 3-year mark to be bonded with the warm fuzzies feelings. If people have not adopted older kids, they just cannot understand what a family's going through, especially when the adopted kids seem so well adjusted and happy when they're out and about in the community. We wish we could have had a glimpse into the end product to encourage us during tough times.
An adopted child is your own child. I hate the words natural and real. I'm natural and real, and any child adopted is our own, just like you're my own mother. No one would like it if people said this is my temporary mother. Give older children a chance, especially the 440,000 waiting children in our country. Aged out does not mean doesn't need loving parents. And when we say we don't want to be adopted, it really means we're scared.
I always felt a part of the family, having been adopted as an infant. Even when my adoptive parents had my younger brother biologically, I felt a part of the family. I never felt that he was not my brother, or that they or anyone else in my family favored my brother. It is interesting when I look back on it physically. My sister and I stuck out because we are dark and my parents are not, but the way we acted, one would never think we were adopted.
In all honesty, it took me several years to truly feel a part of the family. When I was adopted, I had never been hugged or experienced the love of another human being. I also still felt for some time that my move to America was just temporary, and that one day I would pack up and be returned to the orphanage. One of my first memories of truly being a part of my new family is that night I became a United States citizen. I remember that my family was so excited and we had a huge celebration. I never felt so much happiness and love towards me. And it was the first time that I began to realize that my stay may be a permanent one, which made me very happy.
I felt like part of the family quickly, but I did not feel like I was going to stay a part of the family for long. My parents made efforts to get to know me. They walked in my shoes, even taking steps to walk around recreating the disabilities. I had to help them understand. They researched a lot on me and how to get me comfortable with them. They were honest about my past. They knew that they could never make my past not happen. The mother especially adjusted to me. She understood my behavior issues and anger. She also learned that I liked sports. She invested in goalie equipment and had me take slap shots until my anger was out, and then she calmed me down. She understood I never had a childhood, so she let me go down to being 5 years old sometimes.
After the child has arrived, adoptive parents should prepare for the possibility of post-adoption depression syndrome. Post-adoption depression is similar to postpartum depression, except without the physical hormones. New parents might feel sad, anxious, or panicky with all of the new responsibilities. Moms or dads who are prone to mild depression or anxiety are somewhat more likely to experience some degree of post-adoption depression. Please understand these feelings are normal. It is hard for most prospective adoptive parents to believe that they may actually feel depressed after their long-awaited child is finally home. Sometimes adoptive families who have experienced infertility initially questioned whether they were even meant to be parents. And when their child arrives home and the parents are unsure of how to respond to cries or how to comfort their child and what that child actually needs, these uncertainties can easily be translated into feelings of incompetence and maybe a reflection that they were never really meant to be parents in the first place. It's also quite common for adoptive parents to internalize the messages of adoption stories on TV and books from friends or other areas that reflect an instant attachment and smooth sailing after adoption. When reality conflicts with this idealized version of how things are supposed to happen, it can create a great deal of distress. The reality of dealing with dirty diapers, an unkempt home, constantly being late, getting no sleep, being unable to comfort a wailing child, or possibly resulting to sweets to bribe an unruly toddler are not the thing most parents plan for when they consider the joys of parenthood that await them. These feelings can make a parent feel isolated and unable to confide in others for fear that their friends and family members will question their very sanity, since this is the child they have been waiting for so long. Families also fear talking with their adoption social worker about these issues. When dealing with these feelings, it's a good idea to seek relationships with other adoptive parents. Maybe go to a parenting class to encourage your confidence as a new mom or dad, and allow yourself time to adjust to your new child and your new role. Also, make sure to talk to your social worker and possibly physician about your feelings. If at any time you feel that you may be a danger to your child or to yourself, you should, of course, immediately alert your physician and get assistance. Post-adoption depression syndrome is real. It may help to take some medication and therapy just to manage the symptoms, or it may just involve some additional support from your family.
I definitely experienced a serious letdown after adopting. We had waited for so long for our new adopted children and loved them, but when they were actually home and we were dealing with their abuse issues, institutionalized behaviors, lack of education, and lack of manners on a daily basis, it was much more difficult. They were 7 and 9 when they came home after years of abuse and institutionalization. It was much easier to love the idea of these children and love them from afar when we were not dealing with the reality, but it was much harder once love required a day-to-day effort. It truly became so much more about actions than feelings. The guilt was overwhelming, and I felt like such a bad person.
Parenting an adopted child will bring many blessings, but it would be naive to expect that many challenges won't also occur, especially in the first few months at home. These challenges can be profoundly stressful on a marriage. When things are tough at home, the primary caregiver, usually mom, receives the majority of challenge from the child. It is often said that the child has a halo with one parent and horns with the other. The co-parent that minimizes the child's daily challenges or suggests that the primary caregiver is overreacting will create a great and possibly unrepairable resentment. The co-parent should completely support the primary caregiver, be respectful of her feelings, and offer reprieve whenever possible. Without this attitude of, no matter what, we are on the same page. Your perception, whether I see it or not, is reality, and I trust your feelings. That adoptive parents are at a risk for a marriage that cannot withstand the adoptive parenting stress. Other adoptive parents experienced with older child adoption are often the greatest source of support to struggling new adoptive families. One cannot fully comprehend the strain on family and marriage without having experienced it. If you hear nothing else from this marriage discussion, the worst thing a spouse can do for the marital relationship is to make the other parent feel unheard, dismissed, and overreactive to a problem that she is dealing with. Support from extended family, friends, co-workers, and church members that was offered in the early days and weeks post-arrival often seems to disappear when the newness wears off and dealing with the day-to-day parenting tasks become cumbersome. The primary parent needs time to recharge and renew her spirit. I always recommend, especially for full-time stay-at-home parents, that there is at least one scheduled day per week where she has a couple of hours to do whatever she wants. Whether that's dinner with a good friend, yoga class, or browsing alone at a flea market, no matter what, on Thursday from, say, 6 to 8, Dad commits to always being in the home and in charge so that Mom has her free time. She has to be able to count on this. She will need to look forward to this break during difficult moments. And Dad must absolutely insist that she takes her break.
Since we were experiencing the challenges at the same time, it actually made us more of a team. The main stress of adopting two older kids was the constant need for teaching and reteaching, and that fell on the parent that was home the most with them. Then the other parent had the job of offering breaks and encouraging the one more exhausted. We worked hard to schedule weekly or twice monthly dates, but those conversations, to be honest, were mostly about adoption issues. 2 years in, we went away on a longer vacation without the kids and tried hard to relax without problem solving as parents. We would recommend this much needed break. The adopted kids do need lots of time with both parents early on for attachment purposes, but then be willing to share the load with willing friends and family so you can be rejuvenated.
To say the adoption has been challenging on our marriage is the understatement of the year. It has changed us forever, and we almost didn't make it. Several times we came so close to throwing in the towel on our marriage. Raising children with attachment problems is debilitating to your own personal and mental health. I'll be the first to say I found myself in depression, as did my husband. Sometimes I wonder why we made it when I see so many other RAD families that didn't. But my faith assures me there's a reason to have experienced the challenges and to have soldiered through.
Balance is so important. You need to have separate alone time with your spouse. Children benefit from a strong marriage, so you need to invest in that relationship or you'll unsettle the children who can sense problems. Also, don't worry that you have a few problems to overcome. Children are flexible enough to handle some problems. Just remember, the goal is to get back on track and make the best of it when you get knocked down by a problem.
What I noticed was that our marriage issues that we had had in the past, or that pop up from time to time, definitely came back to the forefront under the stress of the adoption. So I would say to couples, you know what your issues are, you know what buttons the other person is going to press, so consider discussing those issues before your children come home and develop strategies to avoid falling back into old ways of dealing with things. Anticipate your spouse is going to do the most annoying things again, and then plan a strategy for how you will handle it. You're going to need time alone to talk and to connect and be a couple. So make plans for that to happen, especially during the early days of the adoption, because those days are the most stressful.
One easy and fun way to give your child a positive association with adoption is to remember the anniversary of meeting your child for the first time, or the adoption finalization with an annual Family Day celebration. Some adoptive parents celebrate Family Day by giving their child special presents, like an extra birthday. And really, what child doesn't want to have 2 birthdays? For example, if adopting internationally, perhaps you give a gift from your child's birth culture. Or if you've adopted domestically, from your child's birth state. Other families use special foods and music or make a special Family Day cake. Each family and child is unique. Family Day celebrations should also be unique and reflective of the individual members of the home. Make your own tradition to honor the day with tradition, love, and respect that your family expanded.
We celebrate Family Day on June 12th, the day we landed back home with Shiloh and finally had all 3 kids together for the first time. We go back to the Lexington airport on that day each year and take the kids' picture together in the same place we took their picture together the first time. We have 3 pictures now, and we plan to do that every year. The boys always make us take them to the spot where they watched our plane land, and they tell Shiloh about it. We always stop by the Korean food store on the way home and get some Korean melons too, because that's something that her foster family had for us on our visit, and it reminds us of them and our trip.
We have a family party with cake and even presents. Each year at the party, everyone in attendance gets to release a balloon up to the sky. We tell everyone to send good wishes up to their balloon. This year, Allie and her cousins said the balloons were going to visit people in heaven, like my stepfather who recently passed away.
Adoptive families, especially in the case of transracial adoption, should expect to receive awkward comments while in public, and I'd like to give you a few tips on handling inappropriate questions about adoption. First, realize these questions are usually born of ignorance. Have a prepared response ready so you don't have to really emotionally engage in answering the uncomfortable question. Don't appear angry or upset, as that may send the message to the child that mom and dad are stressed or angry when people talk about my adoption, so I probably shouldn't ask them any adoption questions. Respect your child's story. It is private and it was theirs before it was yours. Answer questions for your child's ears. They're watching and listening carefully when you are talking about them, and you are displaying for them how you feel about their story and how they can answer others when you're not around. This is very important modeling that you're doing. So, transracial adoptive families just need to anticipate the inappropriate questions that will occur in public. For example, while strolling down a grocery store aisle, a sweet old lady may say, "What a pretty girl, how much did she cost?" Although you may be taken off guard and offended at the idea that you have paid for a child, you do have a big opportunity here to educate this individual in your community and display for your child an example of handling sensitive adoption issues. You may answer these questions with a variety of responses, with vague but information-giving response such as, adoption costs about the same as giving birth in a hospital if you do not have health insurance. Depending on your personality style, you may give a more sarcastic answer such as, well, if I'm going to give you such personal information, I'm sure you won't mind telling me how much you weigh. Although This could feel like a confrontation, which may be uncomfortable for your child, so you need to take that into consideration. But a really good way to answer awkward questions is with, "Why do you ask?" This response shifts the focus from the child, who might be very shy, back to the person initiating the conversation. And it might be a really legitimate reason, although poorly stated, for asking about adoption expenses. Maybe that person has a daughter-in-law struggling with fertility problems and considering adoption. And in that scenario, you would have the opportunity to help a child in need to find a family. Anytime you answer a question about adoption, please remember to be respectful and aware of your child's adoption story because, as I said earlier, it's theirs first. Your child might be private and not welcome the extra attention. And if this is the case, you really should guard their story. As the child becomes older, you can probably take cues from them about how comfortable he or she is with questions and attention. And if you're adopting transracially, you really should be prepared to be a walking billboard for adoption. I've had several clients comment that they have to take extra time whenever grocery shopping because of the attention that having their young child in public creates. As I mentioned, it is important to consider your child's personality when dealing with this attention, especially if your child is more introverted. A great way to manage public attention is to have business cards made from your computer stating something like, "Our daughter was adopted from China. If you would like more information about adoption, please call ABC Adoption Agency at such and such number." Or if you become a big adoption advocate, you could even include your first name and phone number, but be sure to limit the time and day of call. If you are a very shy person, however, and don't think that you can handle the public attention that transracial adoption will generate, make sure to talk with your social worker about that and possibly explore other options for expanding your family.
Does he know he is adopted? We are both white and our son is black. I think he will figure it out.
There was a sweet older lady talking about how beautiful my daughter is. She kept looking at Jason and then me. She said, "Where did she get that black hair?" "Well, I do see you have black roots." I explained that she was born in Taiwan and made an appointment with my hairdresser.
I hate when people degrade his biological family by saying, "I can't believe they just didn't want him and gave him away."
"Are these your real kids?" Pointing at my bio kids. My response, "Yes, and these are my real kids too," while pointing at my adopted kids.
"How much do they cost?"
We had one of our son's little friends recently say, "I don't understand why moms give up their babies. I would never do that." I think it's harder to answer when it is a child, but even children need help understanding. We had a very frank discussion with them to explain that there are reasons why parents choose adoption for their children.
Our child was adopted as an infant from Korea. We got the question more than once, "How will you understand him when he starts to talk?"
The main comment my poor baby gets all the time is what's wrong with her. She's paralyzed from the waist down. People, do not teach your children to ask children with disabilities why they are disabled, because 1, most children do not know, and 2, it's no one's business but the doctors that have to treat the disability. One little boy whose mom had handled it so well said to her, "My name is Angelo, and I'd love to help. If you ever need any help, I'm your guy. No what is wrong with you, no why are you in a wheelchair, just here I am to be your friend." It meant all the world to her. He and his mom had practiced this phrase over and over, so he knew what to say and what to not say.
Is she Ethiopian or just African American?
My wife, daughter, and I, all fair-complected, were leaving church of all places with our little Guatemalan prince. This elderly man looks at us, turns to his wife and says, "They must be giving kids away today." People always assume our son speaks Spanish too.
Thank you for adopting her. As if I did her a favor? Sheesh.
At this time, please pause the video and discuss the following. How do I feel about being approached by strangers with private questions about the adoption? How can I protect my child if he or she is uncomfortable with adoption attention? In addition to the uncomfortable adoption questions that strangers may ask, the questions that adoptive families are often most worried about are those that their child will ask about difficult parts of their history. Sadly, for many adopted children, tough things like poverty, criminal history, substance use, abandonment, abuse, or neglect are part of the biological history. Talking about these difficult parts of the story will not be easy, and I will give you some ideas for approaching the hard subjects in a minute. But the 3 things I want every adoptive parent to remember when having important and sensitive conversations with their children are: first, be honest, no matter what. Being honest does not mean being blunt, but it does mean not adding roses and flowers to a story that aren't there or that you don't know about. For example, if a child who was abandoned says, "Did my birth mother love me?" Instead of saying, "Yes, she loved you so much that she wanted you to come to America to live with our family," you could answer with, "Well, we don't have any information about your birth mother, but we do know that life in Congo was very difficult at the time you were born, and some pregnant women felt their child would have a better life if they were adopted. I think you are a very lovable kid. What do you think?" Second, it's okay to say, "That's a good question. Let me think about that and get back with you." Just because a child asks a question does not mean they have to have an immediate answer. When you are caught off guard with a topic that you feel unprepared for, it would be a good idea to take some time to gather your thoughts and answer in a meaningful way. As long as you do, in fact, get back to answering the question. And 3, teaching your child to talk about sad things validates his feelings and displays that a family is a safe place where sad feelings can be worked through. If you want your child to share his feelings with you, you have to create an environment where it's okay for him to open up and talk about anything. Your child's willingness to share his sad thoughts and feelings about birth and adoption history with you is a most certain indicator that he knows you are safe and he trusts you to love him unconditionally. If criminal history was part of the birth parent's history and factor in the adoption, it is important not to paint the parent as a bad person, although it is a good opportunity to talk about right and wrong choices. Share that we all make mistakes and wrong choices from time to time. Perhaps recall a time where you made a wrong choice, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. The child's birth mother made a wrong choice that was against the law, and her punishment was to go to jail. If this applies, you may also share that the birth mother also made a choice she felt was good, or the judge made a decision that he felt was good, for you to be raised in a safe adoptive family that will help you grow up healthy and strong. For poverty cases, it may seem that the simple explanation is that the birth parents couldn't afford to take care of any child. However, if overemphasized, poverty can be scary for children and may conjure images portrayed in fairy tale cartoon movies of tattered and starving beggars. You can talk about the differences in social service systems. For example, say that in the United States, families and children who do not have much money can get medical care and food and help from our government, but in other countries, it's not possible. In many adoptions, the birth and adoptive families are able to meet and talk to each other, either before or after things are final. If you know it to be true, you could add whatever the birth family has shared about opportunities she has hoped will be provided to the child through adoption. If a domestic adoption, you could explain that the birth mother did not have a husband to help her raise a child, or that she did not have a job or education and could not provide the life she thought a child should have. And then you can talk about ways you can help single parents or people in the child's country of origin. Kids will learn about the dangers of drug and alcohol use in early school programs. Like the discussion on criminal history, this talk can also be framed in the context of making healthy or unhealthy decisions. The birth parent is not a bad person because they used drugs. They made an unhealthy choice, which made them unable to provide a safe home for any child. As your child gets older, they should also know that addictions can be genetic, and so trying drugs or alcohol may be more dangerous for him or her than for other kids. When history of abuse applies, a discussion must occur. Even if the child was harmed as a baby, it is still important to talk about it, as many children have strong pre-verbal memories that they don't understand. For example, the child abused as an infant may be afraid to be alone, scared of small places, or react strongly to an adult's unexpected movements. Children, even older kids who remember abuse, may fear that they did something wrong that triggered the birth parent's anger. These kids must be told that abuse is always a grown-up's problem and never, ever because something was wrong with the child. You can say something like, "Your birth mother did not know how to be a good parent, and when she was frustrated or angry, sometimes she would fill in the blank, hit you or whatever happened. You didn't do anything wrong, you were just a little kid." The message that is sent to a child who was neglected is you don't exist and you don't matter. Like abuse, it can be explained that the biological parent was unable or did not know how to take care of any child. Usually in neglect cases, substance abuse and or mental health problems also apply. The adoptive parent can talk to the child about all the things a child needs to grow up in a healthy and safe home. They need good food, clean clothing, lots of hugs and kisses from their mommy, toys to play with, etc. You can say, "I know that you didn't have a safe and loving home when you lived with your birth mother, and I know you felt like you didn't matter to her. I don't know exactly why she didn't take good care of you, but I know she was wrong. You do matter, you are special, and I am always going to take good care of you." Take every opportunity possible with this child for her to practice using her voice. Make sure she has choices. Would you like to wear your pink shirt or purple shirt today? Would you rather have apples or a granola bar for snack? Would you rather we buy vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream this week at the grocery store? Would you like me to help you put your laundry away or make your bed first? Giving choices and teaching the child to express their preferences and ask for compromises allows them the experience of saying, "I am here." So a parent can answer, "I see you and get you." The child's understanding of his or her whole life story as completely as possible is an important part of the self-integration process, and preparing a life book is a tool for furthering the child's understanding. Every adopted child, even those welcomed into their adoptive families at just a few hours old, has a story that happened before the adoptive parents were part of the child's life. And as the adoptive parents are entrusted with the responsibility of helping the child move as healthfully and successfully through life as possible, it is the adoptive parent's job to gather as many shreds of information that are available so they can be stitched together to make the child's history make sense. Memories can fade so quickly that this written history of the experience will be an invaluable treasure, both to you and to your child. All children love to hear about the early memories their parents have of them. Putting together a very simple life story that is appropriate for a young child's understanding can be powerfully effective in helping the child to understand and come to terms with how their life started and where they are now. Especially for a child adopted at toddler age, where they do not have the cognitive or verbal development yet to understand and express the significant life changes that have happened, this realization can also be healing. I have prepared a couple of examples of simple life stories for you. The first is a case of international adoption of a young toddler. Sarah was adopted, and she has a very special story. Sarah was born in Haiti on June 20th, 2011. This is the picture of the place where she was born. Sarah's birth mother was 29 years old, and her name is Nakia Joseph. Sarah's birth name is Marie Jocelyn. This is a picture of Sarah's birth mother. For 6 months, Nakia Joseph took very good care of her sweet baby girl. But she did not have a job and was worried that she could not provide the future that she wanted for her baby. She wanted her baby to be able to go to school and always have plenty of food to eat. So she decided that adoption would be a good idea. She took Sarah to an orphanage called ABC so that she could have good care and become adopted into a nice family. Sarah's mommy and daddy wanted to have a baby very much, so they decided to adopt. They went to an adoption agency called AB International Adoptions and filled out lots of paperwork. The house was checked carefully to make sure it would be safe for a child. Sarah's mommy and daddy were so happy when they were told that they could adopt. Sarah's parents waited a long time, and then the adoption agency called to tell them about a beautiful little girl named Marie Jocelyn, who was born on June 20th, 2011 in Haiti. They saw this picture of Sarah and they wanted to adopt her right away. So they flew on an airplane to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. In Haiti, the weather was very hot and it was very crowded. The next day, Mommy and Daddy met Sarah for the very first time. Sarah seemed nervous at first, but when Daddy gave her some goldfish crackers, she smiled. Pretty soon, Sarah was laughing and playing. Mommy and Daddy decided her name should be Sarah Marie Jocelyn Jones. After a few more days, Sarah, Mommy, and Daddy flew on an airplane to Sarah's new home in the United States. This is Sarah's house and Sarah playing in her bedroom. Sarah also has a doggie and lots of new cousins to love. Now, Sarah has a new home and a new family. Sarah's birth mother and Haiti and adoption are all very special. Sarah's mommy and daddy are so happy and they love Sarah very much. In the case of domestic newborn adoption, this may mean detailing the story of the birth mother, who she was, why she decided to make an adoption plan, how the birth mother came to find her agency or attorney, details about a meeting with her, the hospital and birth experience, etc. Of course, these are both very simple representations of adoption stories designed to connect the dots for the child by helping them to understand where they were, where they are now, and how they got here. I often recommend that families have a few copies of books like these. Maybe upload your story to an online program and order 3 or 4 bound storybooks so that the child can handle and use them both in private and freely to share with whomever they would like. And so mom could put away a new copy of the book as a keepsake. As we have discussed previously in this section, not all adoption stories have the same amount of known detail, such as in the case of abandonment, or start on such a positive start, such as in the case of prenatal substance abuse, criminal history, abuse, neglect. The important thing to remember about helping the child to understand his story is that it must be provided to him with honesty and age appropriately. So when telling Sarah's international adoption story, if she had been abandoned, it could instead say something like, Sarah was born on about June 1st, 2013. She had a birth mother and a birth father, although mommy and daddy don't know anything about them. Sarah was left at the step of the ABC orphanage in a place where she would be quickly found. She was wearing a little yellow sleeper and wrapped in a white blanket. This is a picture of where Sarah was found. And these are pictures of a few women in Haiti at the time Sarah was born. For substance use, it could have said something like, Kim and Steve had some problems and were not safe enough to take care of a new baby. Kim used some medicine that was not good for a baby, and Sam needed some treatment to be strong and healthy. But Kim and Steve made a good decision to let mommy and daddy adopt Sam so that he would have a family to take good care of him forever. Abuse or neglect can be handled in a similar way in the story, such as Sam's birth mother did not know how to take good care of a baby, and she had many problems. Sometimes she did things that were not good or safe for a baby. So the judge decided that Sam should live with a new family. Mommy and daddy are sad that Sam's birth mother couldn't take care of him, but we are so happy that Sam is part of our family. Mommy and daddy are going to take very good care of Sam and love him forever. Journaling intimate details and feelings of the adoption story can be used, preserved, and recalled according to the child's age and developmental level. Some families may wish to prepare a special life story gift with this information for the child to be presented for a milestone birthday or for Family Day. In the case of many of my domestic adoptive families, most adoptive parents send pictures and letters of the child to the birth mother, either directly or through the agency, until the child is 18. Many of our families will compose such beautiful and thorough letters that they are actually documenting the child's life in written word in a way that most families, birth or adoptive, never have the time or motivation to actually do. What a gift that will be for the child to go back and discover his childhood through love letters written by his adoptive mother to his birth mother. As a child raised in a biological family, I would love to read a narrative of my mother's expression of, say, the first 6 months of my 8-year-old year. How much more valuable would this be for an adopted child?
I don't know anything about my biological father. I was told that he was Indian and my sister's biological father was not Indigenous, and we have the same biological mother. I am grateful for what my biological mother did, and I think that it takes a very strong and smart person to understand that they cannot care for a baby, so they would rather someone have them that has the means and ability. I have never looked at my situation as I was abandoned or given up. If anyone rescued me, it was my biological mother. She gave me the best thing a parent could ever give their child, a chance to have a good life, and for that I'm very grateful.
I love my birth family, but I haven't gotten to see my birth mom since I left when I was 6. I do have most of my family members in the U.S. with me, though, because we were adopted by the same family, which I am grateful for. I do have a younger brother,
who I have not seen in a very long time, but we have Skyped. He lives in Canada with his adopted family, along with a girl also adopted from Haiti. I do hope to see all of my birth family members in the future. I do want to go back to Haiti to visit my mom, but I'm not sure if I would stay. Maybe.
One of the most common questions I get is, if a child's birth parents love them, how could they give up on their child or abuse them? If my child asks to search, how do I handle a conversation about birth parents? That is one thing that always annoys us. Yes, our birth parents loved us, and no, they didn't give up on us. Giving up is having an abortion. They loved us enough to place us with another family who could give us a better life. In the case of abuse, there are sick and twisted people in the world, but we are always those people's children. Just because they were twisted doesn't mean they don't love. As far as talking to your kids, I would always say be open and honest. Searching may not always be possible, especially in cases of abuse, but I would recommend at least exploring it as a family. You as a parent should do research on your own. Obviously use your judgment, but don't lie or make up things. Right now I have no interest in searching. I believe my birth mother is in a good place. I'm happy knowing she brought me into the world. I do not know if she will be able to handle a reunion, especially being over 20 years since I've seen. Maybe she'll read this and see how much I love her. As far as thinking or wondering about them, I always pray for her safety, that she's doing well and is loved. I do wish I knew who my biological father is and if I have any more siblings. I also would like to know my medical history. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy with being a walker. I have not seen my birth mother since I was 5, and have never met my birth father.
I love my birth family, but I haven't gotten to see my birth mom since I left when I was 6. I do have most of my family members in the U.S. with me, though, because we were adopted by the same family, which I am grateful for. I do have a younger brother, who I have not seen in a very long time, but we have Skyped. He lives in Canada with his adopted family, along with a girl also adopted from Haiti. I do hope to see all of my birth family members in the future. I do want to go back to Haiti to visit my mom, but I'm not sure if I would stay. Maybe.
I would like to conclude this segment with a brief discussion of resources that are available to adoptive families. Many families, when experiencing challenges in their adoption transition, are going through crisis. We know that our brains do not work as optimally during times of stress as they do during times of calm. Therefore, it is wise to develop a resource list during a time of calm and clarity so that if and when issues present, you will have much of the research work finished and ready to access. First, begin your list with the child's medical needs. If your child is coming home with a known medical special need, of course, you will already be preparing for those. Create a list of names and numbers of local doctors for primary care, as well as any international adoption medical professionals in the area or that may require some travel time. Then, prepare for the child's life needs. I personally am such a strong believer in trust-based relational intervention that this would be my desired parenting philosophy if I were adopting at this time. There are lists of TBRI trained professionals and contact information all over the country, and a quick Google search should bring you right there. Go ahead and have this information included on your resource list so that it's easy to get to when needed. Collect names and numbers of trusted and experienced adoptive parents in your area that can provide you with feedback and support. Adoptive parenting can be hard, but those in your area who have been there and done that are often an amazing source of cheerleading as well as a proof that things can actually work out. Research psychiatrists, attachment therapists, and family counselors well trained on adoption issues in your area. Look into educational programs for early intervention or school-age children that are offered in your public school system. For example, many states offer free or very low-fee programs for speech, occupational, and physical therapy for children age birth to 3 or 4. If planning to welcome a child who will be ready for school soon, look into the regulations surrounding an IEP or Individualized Educational Plan so that in case services are needed, you are already well informed. Ask for referrals. Talk to other adoptive parents, teachers, medical professionals, and social workers in your community about their experiences and recommendations for any adoption or parenting problem. Personally, I would never go to a new doctor without asking around about him or her. Hopefully, it won't be needed, but some families adopting older children find they are in need of hospitalization or out-of-home care. Go ahead and consider the options here so that if a safety crisis erupts, you have the tools needed to make a good decision. Your adoption agency or social worker is often a wealth of information, as she has likely worked with prior families through tons of adoption challenges. Please keep your agency workers listed on your resources. They are there to help you. And the adoptive parent having the willingness to ask for and accept help is my most important bullet point on this resource topic. No one knows everything, and everyone can benefit from sharing their knowledge and working together. Asking for help from responsible resources is not a failure. Rather, obtaining for your child the information and tools needed for them to succeed is a parenting success. And our segment review. Post-adoption depression syndrome is similar to postpartum depression, although without the physical hormonal changes. Adoptive parents must use positive adoption language to demonstrate respect for the way the adoptive family has been created. Adoptive parents should keep their child's adoption story private. The child can choose when and with whom to share their story. Keeping the marriage strong during times of stress and change is essential. Respect and acknowledgement for the primary child caregiver's feelings is necessary. When answering questions about adoption, body language, tone, and expression are just as important as the words used. It is wise to have a response prepared for unexpected questions in public. Always be honest when answering your child's questions about adoption. Giving your child his simple adoption story in an easy-to-understand format, such as a book with pictures, helps to make sense of all the changes that have occurred and connects the dots of where he was, where he is now, and how he got here. Post-adoption services are available, and by both preparing early and asking for help when needed, shows that the adoptive parent is responsible and particularly committed to the success of the adoption.